February 20th, 1989, 6th Avenue, just off 42nd Street. A real estate developer named Seymour Durst stands in front of a black steel sign, 26 feet wide, and pulls a cord. Light bulbs flicker on. Digits start spinning. The sign reads, "The National DP," and beneath it, a second, smaller line, "Your Family Share." The number on that board that first night was roughly $2.7 trillion. Durst had paid for the whole thing himself, out of his own pocket, because he believed his country was sliding toward ruin. Here's the question that sign never answered. That number has never once gone to zero. Not before Durst built it, not in the 30-plus years since. So, is the United States broke? Or is a national debt something completely different from the kind sitting on your own credit card statement? By the end of this video, you'll know who actually owns that debt, why the government never has to pay it off the way you pay off a car loan, and why the same sign that terrified Seymour Durst in 1989 is, by some real measures, less alarming than it looks. Keep that sign in mind. What happened to it? Twice is where the story ends. To understand why the debt exists at all, go back before Durst. Go back to 1790 to a 35-year-old Treasury Secretary named Alexander Hamilton. The U.S. states owed money. War debts from the Revolution, scattered across 13 states, some of it already sold off cheap by soldiers who never expected to be repaid. Hamilton's plan was radical for its time: have the federal government assume all of it and pay it back reliably, on schedule, using tariff revenue, not eliminate the debt, service it. In a private letter to Robert Morris back in 1781, Hamilton had already written the idea down. Quote, "A national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing, not a curse, a blessing, because a government that reliably pays what it owes can borrow again, cheaply, whenever it needs to." That reliability became the foundation under Wall Street itself. Investors who trusted U.S. bonds started trusting U.S. banks, and U.S. banks financed the railroads, the wars. That's the part missing from Seymour Durst's sign. Government debt isn't a hole a country falls. That's the balls into. It's a tool a country picks up. The same way a business takes out a loan to open a second store, betting the store earns more than the loan costs. The risk isn't that the tool exists, it's what happens if the borrowing outgrows what the economy can support. So who exactly is the United States borrowing from? Here's the fact: almost nobody standing under Durst's sign in 1989 actually knew. Most of America's debt is not owed to some foreign rival. It's owed to Americans and to the U.S. government itself. Roughly a quarter of it sits with foreign governments and investors. Japan and mainland China are historically the largest of those holders, though their shares shift year to year. The rest is domestic: U.S. banks, mutual funds, pension funds, insurance companies, the Federal Reserve itself, and this is the part that surprises people: the Social Security Trust Fund, which by law has to invest its surplus in special Treasury bonds. In other words, a large slice of the national debt is the government owing money to its own retirement system. When your grandmother's Social Security check goes out, part of what funds it is the government paying back a bond it issued to itself years earlier. That single fact breaks the household analogy completely. Your family can't print the currency it owes its debt in. Your family can't tax its neighbors to raise more revenue. And your family definitely can't owe 40% of its mortgage to its own kitchen drawer. The U.S. government can and effectively does all three. But that doesn't mean the sign was lying. It means the sign was measuring the wrong kind of danger. Watch what happened to Durst's clock itself. By September of 2008, the debt had climbed past $10 trillion, so far past what the sign's engineers ever planned for that. The machine physically ran out of digits. The Durst organization had to shut it down for a night and rebuild it, replacing the dollar sign at the front with an extra number. A machine built to warn America about debt had been outgrown by the debt it was built to display. And 3 years later, on August 5th, 2011, something happened that had never happened before in American history. The credit rating agency Standard & Poor's downgraded the United States government's credit rating from a top-tier AAA down to AA+. In its report, S&P pointed not just to the size of the debt, but to what it called the weakened effectiveness, stability, and predictability of American policymaking. Congress and the White House had spent that summer in a standoff over whether to raise the debt ceiling at all, right up to the edge of default. Markets dropped. The Dow fell over 600 points in a single session that following Monday, one of the worst days of the entire 2008 to 2011 financial era. Not because the government was suddenly broke, because the world briefly wasn't sure the United States would choose to pay what it owed on time at all. That's the actual risk hiding inside a number like Durst's sign. Not the size of the debt by itself, but whether the political system managing it stays predictable. Which brings us to the closest. The country has come to testing that question in real time. January 19, 2023, the United States officially hits its statutory debt ceiling, a self-imposed legal cap Congress votes on, separate from actual spending decisions Congress had already made. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen starts sending letters to Congress. In them, she warns that the Treasury is now relying on accounting maneuvers. She called them extraordinary measures just to keep paying bills the government had already legally committed to. By late May, her letters put a hard date on it. The government could run out of ways to pay everything it owed as early as June 1st. For weeks, nobody in Washington could say for certain what would happen if that date arrived and Congress hadn't acted. Would Social Security checks bounce? Would the U.S. default on a Treasury bond payment for the first time in its history? On June 3, 2023, 2 days before the date Yellen had flagged, Congress passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, suspending the debt ceiling and ending the standoff. And then something happened that looked, on Durst's old sign, like a disaster. Within about a week, the reported national debt jumped by roughly $100 billion a day, crossing from under $32 trillion to over $32.6 trillion almost immediately. That spike wasn't new spending, it was the Treasury releasing a backlog of borrowing it. Had been forced to delay for months, all hitting the books at once. The debt didn't explode, the dam just opened. So, back to Seymour Durst's question. What happened to the sign? In 1999 and 2000, the U.S. government actually ran a budget surplus for 4 straight years under President Clinton, tax revenue exceeding spending, debt held by the public briefly shrinking. The Durst family, who kept running the sign after Seymour died in 1995, turned it off. In 2000, the national debt clock in Times Square went dark because for a moment there was nothing rising to display. It didn't stay dark. By 2002, with new tax cuts and rising spending after the September 11th attacks, Seymour's son Douglas Durst switched it back on. It has run, without stopping, ever since. That's the honest answer to the question this video opened with. The debt has not designed. It doesn't need to. What matters isn't whether the number hits zero, it's whether the economy generating tax revenue underneath that number keeps growing faster than the debt does, which is measured as debt relative to the size of the entire economy, not the raw dollar figure alone. By that measure, the debt has occasionally shrunk, like in the Clinton years, even while the sign kept climbing before and after. The sign was never wrong. It was just never built to show the ratio that actually matters. One new fact before we close this out. That original 1989 sign is gone. The Durst family moved a newer, updated version to a different spot near the corner of 43rd and 6th in 2017. As of this recording, it displays a number north of $34 trillion. And by the clock's own math, it climbs by roughly $1 million every 30 seconds. Seymour Durst never lived to see that figure. He built a sign to warn one generation. It's now warning its third. The debt ceiling fight of 2023 wasn't the first time Congress played chicken with a default deadline. It was, by some counts, the 8th time since 1995 alone. What actually happens inside those rooms in the final hours, when both sides know a default could freeze the global financial system, is a different story entirely, and a stranger one than most people realize.